Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining Scarborough Consulting as we present another webinar. This one is titled Parcel Express Services. I want to thank you guys for sharing your precious resource, probably your most precious resource, and that's your time with us today. We know that this time of season or this time of year is busy for so many reasons. The holiday season and traveling for family and end of year projections for business. So thanks for carving out a little bit of time to hear about something that we think was very important and will hopefully save you and your company a lot of frustrations and a lot of time and money. So with that being said, I'm going to do a little housekeeping as we start. As we're going through the webinar, you will see a Q&A section, and that is where it's going to be best for you to type in or submit your questions of any of the material as we go through it. As Geoff shares, he will, so a term he uses or a topic he mentions, you may want more clarification on or something like that. That's the Q&A button on the top of your screen will be the best place to ask those questions. They'll come right to us and we'll be able to ask them as we go throughout the webinar and at the end. If we don't have enough time to go through all the questions that we get, we'll be sure that we'll answer those offline and get you guys an answer back to the email that you registered for the webinar with. We'll also present you with a slide deck of this presentation as well to look through afterwards. We will be hosting, once it's completed, the webinar will be on Scarborough's YouTube page. So please check it out, and we have older ones there as well. So other topics that might be of interest will be there for you guys to reference as you are able. Also, I wanted to remind everyone our webinar series is part of our continuing education program. It's where we try to bring you guys knowledge, bring our customers experience and expertise in different areas, all kinds of topics that will hopefully equip you with the key tools and be able to, discuss those topics in a range of topics that will hopefully help make your jobs easier as you go throughout them. No matter if you're a trade manager, if you're a CFO, if you're a CEO, these will all hopefully help you in different areas depending on your industry and depending on your needs. So with that being said, I want to introduce today's speaker or presenter, I should say. It's our very own Geoff Chambers. He's our Director of Supply Chain Services, which is part of our Scarborough Group's consulting division. He is an amazing resource, many years. I won't divulge how many. It's not nice, but he's probably forgotten more about this industry than I'll ever remember or know. So Geoff Chambers will be helping us today with that. So I'll go ahead, Geoff.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. And as Chad mentioned earlier, there are a variety of webinars out there on topics on the domestic side as well as international side. And we would be more than willing to do individual webinars with your group, if you have a specific group, on any given topic that revolves around consulting. So thank you again for joining us. I want to start off with the first slide. The one thing that I've seen over the years that I've been in the industry and recently read in Oxford Economics is only about 20% of shippers or what we call beneficial cargo owners actually understand the intricacies of a Parcel Express contract. And that's a pretty staggering number. And I've been negotiating with the two big parcel giants now for many years, and especially with 2023 with a historic GRI of 6.9%. We've never seen anything like that before, along with all the hidden, what I call hidden charges that you don't normally see when you're quantifying your expenditures coming into the new year. So really our key objectives in this webinar is to give you an idea of how you can reduce your overall expenditures. Now we'll look at revenue tiers. We're going to do a case study. Your contract applications, being you may be in the middle of a 2-year contract, you may be only 1 year into the contract. What does that look like? DIM factors have changed dramatically in the last few years. What was used to be a normal package is now overdimensional. So we'll talk some about that. Fuel surcharge. Most BCOs think that they have to pay the published fuel surcharge as a negotiable item. And really the big one that hit in 2023 was called DOS, and that's delivery area surcharges. To give you an example, there's around 41,000 zip codes in the United States. In 2023, over 25,000 became delivery area surcharges. So there's extended and remote delivery area surcharges now that you didn't have before, or as many, let's put it that way. Analyzing other accessorial charges. There are changes coming in 2024 versus this year. While the overall GRI is only 5.9 for the big parcel giants, 2024 has some other things that are we're going to reveal to you today as well. Peak surcharges, negotiable item. A lot of people think that that's not. One of the Parcel Express services has had peak surcharges all year long. Obviously, the volumes for both UPS and FedEx have gone way down in comparison to 2022. Peak surcharges are certainly something that's negotiable. We'll look at your package level detail, your average zone, and then the 100 weight breaks are very, very important. I'll give you an example of that. So let's say that your average zone is 5 in the United States, and it makes sense for you to ship 170 pounds on a pallet with UPS parcel, let's say. And a lot of people don't know what their weight breaks are by zone in comparison to LTL minimum charge floor. So your LTL minimum charge floor may be $100, but actually you can go up to, let's say, 170 pounds before you really breach that $100 spend. And then anytime we look at negotiations, we obviously want to do a general rate increase cap. And we successfully did that here recently with a customer we're going to do the case study on, and we'll get into that here in the next slide. This particular customer that we had a combined annualized transportation spend, both domestic and internationally, of $6 million. Now, in addition to that, they had bundled their LTL with their express and their parcel. So while FedEx will do that, and sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't make sense, UPS does not do bundled services with T-Force, even though they own T-Force. This particular customer had 34% of their packages were overdimensional. They didn't have a DIM factor that really addressed that 34%. They had a buyout clause. They were 18 months into a 3-year contract, and there was a $75,000 buyout. And by the way, I've never seen either UPS or FedEx implement a buyout clause, even though they put those in the contract. This customer had a 0% discount on international Canada. Their business in 2023 had especially on the e-commerce side, had really increased into Canada. So they didn't really have any discounts in place for that. Their business model changed. Their weight per piece actually went up slightly, which is a good thing. And then again, they were really pushing for more e-commerce volume. Over 35% we found of in 2022 versus 2023 actually turned into delivery area surcharges that they didn't pay for before. So that was additional cost. And they were paying for published fuel surcharge pricing, extremely low discounts on home residential deliveries. And another thing that they needed was freight pay and audit services, which we do as well.
Hey, Geoff, I got a quick question
Sure.
for those that may be listening. And you mentioned in the first one that this customer had combined or bundled, much like home and auto insurance, like we see with Patrick Mahomes selling for State Farm. What they bundled their LTL and their parcel. Is there a benefit to doing that, or is that not something you would recommend, or does that depend on the customer, what may work better or worse for them?
Well, it's a good question, Chad. I think in some cases it works. Now, obviously, the 2.5 and the 1 and the 900,000 don't equal 6 million. So to really complement their program, they had some regional LTL carriers in place. And, you know, I think that putting all your LTL in one basket and combining it with parcel is not a good idea in that case, unless you have some backup regional and, you know, long haul opportunities. So it depends on your business model. It depends on a lot of factors, but as a general rule, it's not a great idea. But for this particular customer, and we'll go through the study, it happened to work pretty well the way we, you know, negotiated it.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Sure. On the next slide. So our protocol is so an incumbent is something that's very important. And anytime we negotiate contracts, whether that be an LTL, truckload, whatever the case may be, or the mode of transportation, we really listen to the customer. And if a customer says, look, we've been dealing with UPS for 10 years. We really don't want to move away from them. We would really like to stick with them. However, because we want to obviously reduce our expenditures and get ahead of this curve of all the changes that are taking place, we still want to put it out in RFP form, but keeping the objective that we still want to lean toward, let's say, UPS. So we really take that into consideration, because the one thing that you don't want to do on the downstream side with your customers is to change services in the middle of a year and or rock the boat in any way. If UPS has been their preferred, they don't like FedEx and Express, and vice versa. I've heard both sides of it, and for a variety of reasons. So we take that into consideration when we do the RFP. We analyze the PLD data, which is the package level detail, benchmark that, evaluate it. We prepare the RFP strategies for savings, the contract terms supported by the PLD evaluation. So in other words, when the RFP goes out, we have a strategy in mind, as well as a number that we would be looking at as far as savings, supported by the PLD analytical data that we looked at. We're going to take a look at a customer RFP letter here in the next slide, but before we do this, I want to let you know that the letter addresses the timeline for completion. We will review the new pricing proposal and projected savings. And then since UPS and FedEx Express did not work with people like us, primarily because, and when I say they don't work with us, with the customer that we just finalized here recently, they would let me on a few of their calls and intro calls and what we were looking for. But pretty much we're going to work behind the scenes and give you the tools and the quantitative research that we've done to let you know how you should approach each vendor. And then make suggested adjustments and improvements. And again, back to that GRI rate cap, because once you get this deep into negotiations and you start talking about DOS and fuel surcharge and these types of things, both FedEx and UPS both really try to get you into a multi-year deal. And then the actual contract implementation, which will help you through that as well. Now, if we look on the next slide, we'll see an example of an RFP letter. So again, let's just say that you're a shipper that wants to keep UPS, which, you know, obviously you want to keep to yourself. But this is an example of an RFP letter. It's very simplistic. And all companies are in a very unique market conditions. We don't see anything really returning to normal. You know, there's been a downward spiral on the economic side in 2023 as far as volume across all modes, including ocean. So this essentially is just saying that because of their focus on cost reductions, they're going to put their business out to bid. There's 3 bullet points there that are, I think, are very important, specifically for this customer and for most, would be the residential and commercial deliveries, the delivery area surcharges, and all the other accessorial charges applicable to your core business. So that's very important. Both companies were very excited about the RFP letter. And we'll go to the next slide and talk a little bit about some of the things that we were able to do. Now, in the blue, and we're going to look at the top blue and the top green, the customer's average zone was zone 5, and their average weight per piece was 10 pounds. So in the blue, you'll see that at 10 pounds, 2 through 8 zones, they were at a 39% discount. On the green, what we were able to do is take that 10 pounds from 39% up to 46%. That's just to give you an example. Now, I will say that it's pretty easy to take a FedEx and UPS contract and say, well, we have a 46% discount here and we have a 50% discount here, and quantify that. What really gets more difficult is when you start really digging into the contract terms and applications and getting a real grasp on what that means and the impact it has. So I think we have, we're working on getting our slides back up. But overall, in 2019, so up until 2019, both FedEx and UPS on their air and parcel had the same rate base. In 2019, they changed that. So it's kind of like LTL. LTL has their own rate bases that are created by the Southern Motor Carrier Conference, SMC. They do almost all of the LTL contracts, and having a 60% with T-Force and having a 55% with FedEx, your 55% may be a better discount because it's off a different rate base. Same thing now with Parcel and Express because they have changed their rate bases as of 2019. So this is
Yeah, so
just kind of
am I hearing you right that says just because people fight for a lower, or I should say higher percentage of a discount, it may not be best for their company because there may be your company may ship in a matter or in a way that getting rid of a different accessorial and taking a little bit lower discount rate might benefit you financially in the longer term.
Yeah, well, I think the overall objective is to find your sweet spots and the percent of your package level detail by zone and kind of go from there. So I think while revenue tiers are very important in the whole scheme of things, accessorials are even more important, but I've yet to see a negotiation, in first round come back without an increase in the overall discount to compensate. So thanks for the question.
Yes.
So let's go on to the next slide. And again, this is just kind of a broad overview on what we've done. So if you look at the top blue, you see a grace discount of 10.5%. This particular customer is doing about 4,000 packages a week. And they were in that $10,000 range. So you can see the $10,000 range is right at 11% in the old, and in the new, it's well over 15%. So that's the two examples there of their old and then their new pricing as far as their discount levels. So you really have two discounts. You have your, in their case, their bundle discount, which included all services. And then you have your discounts that are applicable by zone that are restrictive to parcel. On the next slide. Two things I want to point out on this. So on the far right side in the middle on the green, it says it's a 36-month contract, and you can see a rate cap of 5%. Now, when we finalized the negotiations, the customer came back to me and they said they want a 3-year contract. I said, try to get a 2-year contract. They wouldn't budge. They wanted a 3-year contract. And I said, okay, if you do that, then make sure that you get a rate cap both on their general rate increase and all accessorial charges and any applicable charges to their package level detail, whether that be LTL or parcel in their case. They did agree to a 5% rate cap, which is a big win because if I'm a person responsible for accruing for transportation charges for 2024, and I see that FedEx and UPS both announced a 5% or 5.9% general rate increase, then what I can do through my demand planning is look at customer historic data, and I can say, okay, we project in 2024 X number of dollars, and then they figure out what that is at 5.9% based on their packages they anticipate shipping. But when, first quarter, second quarter rolls around, they see that 5.9% is sometimes up to 22% difference just because of all the accessorial charges they didn't take into consideration. Another thing that we did that was huge for this customer, in addition to the rate cap, is most of the time UPS and FedEx will not go over a 166 dim factor. And we got it up to 225. In fact, in my first conversation with my introduction to one of the UPS, parcel suppliers, so I said, what we're looking for based on OD packages is a 225 dim factor. And they said, we would never do that. Well, their negotiation, when they came back with the first round, they had a 225. So it's something that we can certainly help you with and give you the right nomenclature to use to get to that point. If we go to the next slide. So this is really the outcome of the performance metrics of this case study. So it took 2 rounds of negotiations. The one thing that I would suggest, and I can remember years ago, I was working with the CFO, and he was very over anxious to get a contract signed. And it took us 6 months to, with me finally saying, hang on. We ended up saving this particular customer $1 million, which was about 30%. They had a very dense product. They loaded pups out of their facility every day. So the one thing that I will say is when you're dealing with Parcel Express services, it's nothing that you can rush. While you can put a timeline out like we did in the letter that you send out for RFP, they're really, in the whole scheme of things, it's not anything that you want to rush. So we had 2 rounds of negotiations to achieve that maximum yield. We increased the percentage of the zonal matrix on the revenue threshold. We reduced the accessorial charges through discounts, including delivery area surcharges. We made fuel surcharge adjustments. We minimized peak surcharges. Again, we took that OD factor from a 166 to a 225, which has had a dramatic impact on their price per piece. Provider on the second round agreed to all requests with the 3-year contract, with that 5-year percentage of GRI on all charges, and it's going to save them about 15% a year. So if you think of that in 3 years, and you're saving 15%, and you're only taking 5-year or 5% per year at 5 divided by 15 is 3, so 3-year contract, you're going to be flatlined in 2023 as opposed to 2026. So it was really a sweet negotiation that turned out very well. We'll go on to the next slide. So Scarborough Consulting Services, we've partnered with a leading industry expert in the backroom work as far as the PLD data. For example, the one that I completed here recently was 10,000 lines long, an Excel spreadsheet, and 250 columns wide. So it's very, very time consuming. So we're partnering with a very large company that's been around for 40 years in the industry. And we will do a free contract assessment with an NDA. NDAs are very important because we recognize that everything is very proprietary. and we take that very, very seriously. With Parcel and Express, really, if you're spending $500,000 or more, you're definitely, in the sweet spot for where we look. And we work with them, and they're doing customers all the way down from 500,000 all the way up to the Samsung, John Deere's, the big BBRs in the world. So that we will need the vendor login for PLD data sourcing. So what we do is we go in through your login. Of course, you're covered under the NDA, and we pull down all the PLD data for a time period and do our quantitative study. We give definite incumbent verification. We take that very seriously, that if you don't want to move from UPS or you don't want to move from FedEx, we really take that into consideration. We give you a quantitative assessment of the PLD, or package level detail, results and suggested move forward strategies with estimated savings. And then we will together, and all of this up to this point doesn't cost anything. Then we do a contract, and the contract is based on the benchmarks that we create, and we share in the savings that's generated, is what it amounts to. It's a very simplistic one-page contract and very straightforward. Another thing that we'll do is give you continual support with recommendations. Let's say in 2024, the last part of 2024, all of a sudden something has changed in your business, then we'll certainly give you recommendations to go back to the vendor and say, as you can see, based on this scenario, we're changing rapidly in this direction. We'll certainly be there with you. We'll give you the reporting and the PLD analytics to follow, along with the invoice processing. So, for example, if you had one invoice and there were, like, for example, the 4,000 transactions per week, then you would get the summary of charges with, let's say it's $5,000, and along with the detail of charges for all the package level detail. So you would be able to house that. And then on top of that, we like to do QBR data analytics. So we like to make sure that you're following suit of expectations, that the vendor you're using is meeting all the objectives, obviously checking on your business, watching your business as you traverse 2024. And speaking of which, 2023 was a big hit for a lot of people. 2024, it brings in some new, very interesting delivery area surcharges, along with some other accessorials that we have a hold of and know what they're going to do. The only other thing that I wanted to say is there's been a lot of talk about Amazon and what they're going to do to maybe disrupt the two big giants of FedEx and UPS. And I will say that as of yesterday, Amazon is servicing right now 15 locations. You do need to go through their distribution network in order to achieve their discounts. And quite honestly, they look to be very favorable if that's the route you're going to take. Now, in saying that, there's also a cost of doing business with Amazon, and you have to weigh that out in proportion to how much e-commerce business you're doing, and if you're doing anything with Amazon at all. And there's still some question marks on how all of that's going to work and how all of it's going to look like. So in addition to that, FedEx in 2024, they announced this year that they're going to put both their LTL and parcel under one silo. So instead of having separate entities, FedEx Express, FedEx Parcel, they're going to do really a one-siloed approach, which there's still a question mark on how all of that's going to work out. But we certainly have some good ideas on what we're seeing.
Is that the last slide for you, Geoff?
Yeah, I think that's we'll go to the last one for any questions. And then again, the slide deck we can certainly send to you, so you'll have a copy of the slide deck. Any questions that you want to ask offline, we'll be happy to answer those, or any questions that you might have. And Chad, any comments or you'd like to make would be appreciated as well.
Yeah, no, it's a tremendous wealth. Thank you, Geoff, for presenting that to us, because it was a shocking stat at the beginning to hear that 20% of beneficial cargo owners or shippers actually understand what they've got in a contract, and it's sad that I'm guessing the parcel carriers and the express carriers probably make the contracts pretty confusing so that they can keep everyone in the dark a little bit more. But that's something that I think everyone obviously here in the webinar, or we probably know of friends or coworkers or colleagues in other companies that could benefit from this as well. They would like to know more about the contract they currently have signed, ways that their company could save time, money, and sometimes it's even just the negotiation. Maybe they're currently negotiating on their own behalf, but if they can have some help, it would save them time and maybe not have to negotiate quite as much. But that's great. I think we have a couple questions. If you guys haven't got your questions in yet, please go up to the top. There's a Q&A button. You can type in your questions there. We'll go through them. If there's something that's maybe not related to this webinar, but you would like some input on it, feel free to throw it in there and we can answer it offline and get back to you as well. Let me see if I know I have a few questions here currently, so I'll go to one of the first ones here. Earlier this year, Geoff, we saw a strike in the parcel market of workers, and that caused a lot of disruption for a lot of folks. What does that have any effect on contract negotiation going forward? Are there protections against that or whatnot?
That's a good question. So UPS was on the verge of striking, and the Teamsters settled for a $30 billion contract over the duration of the period for the next one that's due, which I think this is a 5-year contract. So I will say that UPS lost over 1 million packages a day to their competition. So I think that, and just recently, as of this week, UPS was going to lay off around 500 workers at their UPS sort center in Louisville, and the Teamster said, if you lay these people off, we're going to go on strike. So UPS obviously put them right back on. They didn't lay them off. They were right back on. I think FedEx and UPS have both shed a lot of pilots. So they both had an overabundance of pilots. FedEx encouraged their pilots to go to a couple of commercial airlines. And the commercial airline industry has also been suffering from a pilot shortage. So there were early buyouts with pilots, and UPS also downsized their number of pilots. So with respect to a strike, I really don't, after this last one this year that had everyone on pins and needles, I it was down to the 11th hour, Chad, and they didn't strike. So, but at the same time, if UPS has a big layoff somewhere, we know what the response is going to be.
So we should be good, is what you're saying, for at least a couple of years in regards to having to deal with that again, unless something drastic happens in the input or in the meantime.
Both UPS and FedEx, for the first time since I've been negotiating these contracts for, let's just say, over 20 years, this is the first time that I have seen FedEx and UPS buying business. They're hungry. And that's a good thing. And again, even if you want to keep your incumbent, and they've been doing a great job for you, this is still a great opportunity to RFP your business. There's no better time since I've been in the industry, with everything that's changed with the micro and macroeconomics for 2023 and what's anticipated for 2024.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, I would say the world and shippers have seen enough volatility in the last 3 to 4 years. We would appreciate some consistency and calmness in the water, so to speak. I got another question here from someone that says, if I mainly ship e-commerce, if I'm a direct to consumer through parcel services, is residential delivery considered part of that DOS, that is, you rent the delivery area, and is it an extended one, or is that something totally different?
It is an extended one, and it can be a remote. Remote is primarily for Alaska and Hawaii. Extended could be for any of the 25,000. There's over 25,000 that could be extended. Now, the USPS obviously doesn't charge a residential surcharge of any kind if you're working with the USPS.
Yeah.
And according to the preliminary findings from Amazon in the program that they're going to roll out, which is, again, still a big question mark, is they're not going to charge any type of delivery area surcharges. Again, it's weighing the cost of doing business with Amazon and if that really fits your business model.
Okay, that's good to know. Another question we have here is there a better time of year to request a contract negotiation? You mentioned the RFP letter, and obviously the case study, you said they renegotiated before their contract was due or up. But is there a better time of year to request that contract negotiation? And does it requesting a contract note, does the time in the year that you requested, does it affect the length of contract negotiations? Are they more apt to negotiate a contract quicker in the spring or the fall? Or I'll let you respond to that.
Historically, you would never want to do an RFP in fourth quarter. We're in the exception. Virtually any quarter in the coming quarters that we see, including fourth quarter now, is a perfect opportunity based on the just the sheer volume that's dropped for both for the parcel people. So, Chad, normally I would say you'd never negotiate in fourth quarter because that's peak season. It's not anything you want to touch. But I would say in all modes of transportation, even on the surface side, fourth quarter of this year is the exception, not the rule. So it's it's a good question, but now's the time to do this. And if it carries over into January, that's fine as well. If it carries into March before you're ready to pull the trigger, we don't see a lot of changes happening because we already know what's going to be static in 2024. What we really want to be able to do throughout this process, and I was so proud of the operations manager that I worked with at this corporation that we negotiated their contract with, in that with him, it was a learning process. So it's almost like we were providing the education by giving him the detail behind the scenes of what their C-level VPs said. Essentially, it was a lot of smoke and mirrors during the first negotiation, which oftentimes you see some smoke and mirrors in these negotiations. But I was really excited about the operations manager and his ability to grasp and learn what to look for and how to watch for any changes that when they announce a general rate increase, all the other increases that can coincide with that.
Yeah, I bet. Another question we have here, in concerning length of contract, is there an advantage to signing a 1, 2, or 3-year contract, like you mentioned earlier in that case study? You had tried for a 2-year, and the carrier pushed for a 3-year. I'm sure it depends on the organization, and the longer contract, the less negotiations you have to go through. But give us your take on that.
Well, it's a good point. I always try to stick with 2-year contracts if possible when we're dealing with Parcel Express, and try not to go over that. And if it does, get very, very aggressive with the rate cap, the GRI rate cap on all charges. So in the perfect world, you wouldn't want more than a 2-year contract. It just so happened we were able to get our rate cap, and they agreed to it in this 3-year contract. And to give you the operations manager overview on a 3-year contract, you said, "I want this to be 3 years because I don't want to go through this again." Was his exact words. And it was not so much of his inabilities to learn, because he learned a lot. It was just so much of the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth that was a little bit tiring. And obviously hitting a home run at 15%. So that means in the 3rd year, they're going to be paying what they paid, 3 years earlier with the 15% savings. You can do your accrual and have an effective accrual, and that's what we're trying to do through all of the products, is teaching people through supply chain modeling, planning, this product, cost containment, and all the other products that we have, is we want you to be able to successfully accrue for transportation charges, the applications that are taking place by year, the changes that are evolving in the industry. We want you to be resilient. Resiliency is very important. Your agility as a company is very, very important as well, and your sustainability as a customer, and as a manufacturing entity or distribution entity. We want you to be successful and continue to increase your ROI through a variety of products, so you can take charge. Chad, I think you went on mute.
I am muted. I'm sorry.
Okay.
There, there was another question we have here that you mentioned that the big parcel services, the UPS, the FedExes of the world, are currently out buying business. They want that business back. They've either lost or lost to a different market share. But has there ever been a season where subsequent contracts are lower than the previous ones? So like if you you said there was a cap on the GRI that's going up, but is there seasons where they're wanting the business so bad that you actually the whole overall contract is better in every regard than the previous one you signed with them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you sign a contract in 2023, you're in the 6th month and it's a 2-year contract. No question with what's being released in 2024. It's a perfect time to do it now. I just I can't stress that enough. You know, I just think it's critically important to reach that pinnacle and say, you know, let's do it, even though we just signed 6 months ago. And they are hungry and they are buying business, and it's unlike anything I've seen before.
That's good to know. It's no time like the present, I guess is what I hear you saying.
Yes, absolutely.
The from a provider perspective, if you have a contract with one carrier, you mentioned USPS, versus they do things that obviously UPS or FedEx don't do, or like delivery to residential areas and stuff like that. Is it beneficial, or can there be a benefit to signing multiple contracts with different providers at the same time, even for the same type of service like parcel or express?
I'm not, since they're all tied into revenue bands, and they're, for example, let's just say you're primarily FedEx, but you have customers that only will want UPS delivering to their door. So in the case of our customer recently, we did get an aggressive UPS contract to complement the FedEx contract. It's not something I like to historically do because it dilutes your revenue tiers, but we do realize that there are cases where I only want FedEx, I only want UPS delivering to my door, and we address those through the PLD quantitative study and the feedback from you as our customer.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. I just didn't know if there was maybe a business model that might, and who knows, it could, but typically it's not beneficial because you lose out on the volume, I'm guessing.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's you know, again, keeping the incumbent in mind. If you signed a contract with UPS 6 months ago and you've decided that you want to reduce your costs and you recognize some of the issues that we've brought up that are going to impact you in 2024, we'll keep that in mind when we go to market for you. You know, any way that you want to take that letter, we just use an example RFP letter. Anything you want to do to augment that letter will help you in order to achieve your goals.
Right. Awesome. Well, I think we're kind of nearing our end of our time, so I'll kind of wrap up with a couple comments. And if there are other questions that you guys didn't get a chance to submit or that pop into your brain as you're drifting off to sleep tonight, please reach out. We'd love to answer them. We'd love to talk further in more details to your specific industry or your specific situation. So don't hesitate to reach out at any time. Geoff is a wealth of knowledge and would love to share at any point or to hear what issues you may be going through. Thanks again for everyone taking some time out of their busy season to, you know, maybe learn about a topic that's not the sexy topics that in our shipping world, but parcel and express services and the contract negotiation that follows them is very important and can hopefully save you all a lot of time and money over the course of a couple years in a contract. Please be on the lookout for any upcoming webinars that we're doing here soon. Another topic might interest you in your job description, and share this as well. Let people know that if you're talking with a colleague or a friend in another industry and they're talking about Parcel, because I know that's probably what you guys all do around the water coolers, talk about Parcel. But if you talk about Parcel, share this with them. We'd love to help them out as well. And please, don't ever hesitate or don't think you're a bother if you have a question about one of these topics or anything else. Our Scarborough Consulting Group does many things, whether it's like supply chain services, or maybe you're needing something on the global trade aspect where you're doing duty drawback or whatever. We would love to help out in those regards as well. So thanks again to everyone who signed up and who attended. Check out the recording that we post on our website, on our YouTube channel, as well as we'll be sending out the slide deck to those that want it as well. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.